What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So tonight we do have the Game Awards. They will start with a pre-show at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and then the full show at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be going live just ahead of that 8 p.m. Eastern start time, hoping for some pretty big game announcements, which today we are going to go over some of the confirmed game announcements, as well as some of the hopes and dreams that are floating around out there online. Also, we're going to be talking about a new report out of Bloomberg showing off the troubled development history for Halo Infinite, and we're also going to talk about some new sales numbers for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, showing us that, yeah, Pokemon's still pretty popular. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with God of War on PC. It will be releasing on Steam January 14th, and we got a full video yesterday going over some of the features that will be coming with that PC release. You can see some of that here. Some of these improvements do include native 4K with an unlocked frame rate. We will have high-res shadows, better reflections, NVIDIA DLSS and reflex support, and you'll be able to use basically the control scheme of your choice. You can pick up a DualShock 4, a DualSense, other gamepads, and be interesting to see if the Xbox controller is supported. I assume it will, and God of War with Xbox button prompts is an interesting one. You can also just use your customized key bindings for keyboard and mouse, but I will say I would probably pick up a controller to play God of War. But yeah, you can try a keyboard and mouse there. I mean, the big thing here, obviously, is that God of War will go to a whole other group of gamers through PC, and the game itself is phenomenal. Still my favorite game from that PlayStation generation. Certainly worth picking up even now, even at full price. Like I said, still an awesome experience to go through, and it's going to look fantastic on the PC. Also, do you remember the whole thing around Abandoned and Blue Box Studios? Well, it looks like that real-time application experience thing that they put out there did receive an update, and they're, I guess, delaying the Prologue or the game. We're still not really sure what it is, but let's take a look here. There were some screenshots that were posted up. Saw this over on Push Square. You can log into the app now, and there is a section that you can find that says, "We are excited to announce that the Prologue chapter releases Q1 2022, and they say a specific date will be announced shortly. Stay tuned." Apparently the Prologue, as people are understanding this, is going to be a playable demo almost, and it's going to be a standalone game with its own set of trophies on the PS5. Who knows if that's actually going to happen, because we still don't even know what exactly is going on here with Abandoned, but it did fall out of the news there for a while now, which, I mean, is good, because obviously this thing was building up to what it was never going to be, which is Kojima ripping off the mask and saying, "Here I am with the new Metal Gear Solid or the new Silent Hill." No, it really does look like it was just a smaller studio who realized they caught lightning in a bottle and tried to ride it a bit too far. Oh, and we did have Ubisoft announce their new Quartz beta through a video on YouTube, which now the dislike counter is just hidden, right? Well, turns out that didn't stop Ubisoft from delisting their video after getting absolutely crushed with dislikes. We can see this over on VGC, where they say Ubisoft delists its NFT announcement as YouTube dislikes top 22,000. There were less than 5% of viewers who liked the video. If you go there now, or it's delisted, but you can still get to it, it was like 1,000 likes. So yeah, it got demolished pretty badly. I did a video on the second channel going over all of this because it is quite the lengthy topic and what Ubisoft is trying to do here, but I think people saw it and they saw NFT, but then they also said, well, we see what Ubisoft's trying to do here. Obviously, it's all about, in some way, shape, or form, making money, and in Ubisoft's mind, it's like, ooh, NFT, we put that in front of our in-game cosmetics, and then everything will explode in value. And like I said, people who went to that video and saw it, well, they saw exactly what Ubisoft was planning out here, and then hit the dislike button. It's interesting that it still calls Ubisoft to pull it down when we couldn't actually see the dislikes in the first place, unless you use an extension or some sort of plugin for Chrome or Firefox, but the vast majority of people are probably not using that. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Game Awards, like I said, coming up here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're expecting some pretty big game announcements here, as we've had things even like the Xbox Series X itself revealed for the first time. Let's actually start going over some of the announcements that we can expect to have here, games being shown off, and even movies for the first time. Let's start here. Jeff Keighley over on Twitter saying tomorrow night Sonic's 30th anniversary gets even bigger. See the next game, and we're excited to welcome Jim Carrey and Ben Schwartz to the Game Awards to world premiere Sonic Movie 2. There's even a full movie poster that was put out, and you know what? The movie poster looks pretty good for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, coming April 8th. This was shared up by the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter account here. I like that. Sonic on, of course, the top of the red plane with Tails flying around and Dr. Robotnik in the background. But the other part, obviously, is the game. Sonic Frontiers. We've heard quite a few rumors around what this is going to be. It was talked about as being like an open world style Sonic game with towers almost, like from a Far Cry or Assassin's Creed Ubisoft style game that you go around and capture. That was apparently from initial playtest that someone shared online. That doesn't necessarily mean it's what the game is actually going to be, but it seems that Sega has an interesting or a different mindset with this Sonic game. So hopefully they have some gameplay they can show off there to give us an idea as to what we are in store for with Sonic Frontiers. It also looks like we're gonna have gameplay for another big title in 2022. We can see this once again posted up by Jeff Keighley. He's doing a very good job hyping up his show here, saying, Sefton, we can't wait for this. That's right, Suicide Squad game is coming to the Game Awards tomorrow night. As a huge Rocksteady Games fan, I've been waiting a long time to show off what Sefton and the team have been working on. If you remember, we saw basically a cinematic trailer for the game. I mean, it at least gave us an idea as to the direction of the game. We're going to play as a Suicide Squad, trying to take down all the different members of the Justice League, which I'm curious how that's going to happen, is what I'll say there. But if we can get gameplay of this heading into next year, it'll be really, really big. I have a lot of faith that Rocksteady can pull it off, even though the premise is strange, but it's at least an interesting premise, one that is compelling enough to see what they have in store for us here. Like I said, hopefully with some gameplay. Now, Saber Interactive will also be there with a couple of announcements. It looks like they will be talking more about that Evil Dead game that was actually delayed out of this year into next year, and they'll probably announce some sort of new title across all platforms. Saber's been pretty good about supporting the Switch alongside of the Xbox and the PlayStation, even like the newer platforms, the Series X and the PS5. Saber is one of those development studios that seems to be able to do those impossible ports, like Witcher 3. I mean, when Witcher 3 was first rumored, no one thought it was possible that that could run on the Switch, and then Saber said, yeah, watch this. We also had the Game Awards player's voice whittled down now to 5 different choices. They were shared here by Jeff Keighley over on Twitter. Forza Horizon 5, It Takes Two, Halo Infinite, Metroid Dread, and Resident Evil Village. So go ahead and vote for your top pick ahead of the show later on tonight. As for the hopes and dreams, the biggest one that I see out there is something for Breath of the Wild 2, and I'm thinking it's not necessarily going to happen here. I mean, we've seen teaser after teaser for Breath of the Wild 2, and I feel like at this point, the next time Nintendo shows it, they'll want to really showcase it. And I don't know if that is a good spot for the Game Awards to have like a 10 or 15 minute presentation around Breath of the Wild 2. No, I would say, if I had to guess, if I had to all right, let's throw a prediction here, what could Nintendo show up with? I think it'd be a cool idea to show up with that Metroid Prime rumored remake or remaster, mostly because Metroid Dread is indeed up for Game of the Year nomination, so we'll be there at the end when they're going through everything. Basically, Metroid will have a pretty good presence here at the show, so why not continue on into next year when I'm not expecting Metroid Prime 4 to release, but maybe this rumored Metroid remake will be there. It's at least a good way just to show and confirm that it does exist, as we are hearing about this rumor and just hoping that it does exist. But Breath of the Wild 2, it's possible. I'm just not expecting it. And obviously we don't have a Smash character to go off of like we typically will predict. So anything's possible here. And here's hoping, for the most part, we're not all disappointed after it ends. Next up, let's talk about this new report out of Bloomberg for Halo Infinite and its rocky development, is what we'll say. That shouldn't surprise anyone. It's been pretty public. They had to delay it out of when the Xbox Series X was launching to an entire year later. Now, though, the campaign is out, but it looks like there were a lot of things that went into this, which includes pretty significant cut content. Let's take a look at this over on Twitter. This was an excerpt that we had Jason Schreier post up there, but there is an entire article you should be going through because it's very interesting to see from start to finish all the things they had to kind of experience to get this game out the door. It says, by the summer of 2019, Halo Infinite was in crisis mode. The studio decided to cut almost 2/3 of the entire planned game, leaving managers to instruct some designers to come to the office and do nothing while the studio figured out the next move. Eventually, the game's open world, which was cut back from a vast Zelda-like experience into something far smaller, which, hey, I think Jeff Grubb mentioned that this was like Halo's Breath of the Wild moment or Breath of the Wild style game. Well, there you go. Their Zelda-like experience. Clearly, they were at least shooting for what they saw Nintendo do with Breath of the Wild, but kind of have it with Halo. It soon become clear to some on the team that even with the compromises, getting Halo Infinite in a decent shape by the following fall would be impossible. Still, the timing of the release didn't seem up for discussion. Microsoft told 343 that it had to be a launch game for the next Xbox, which meant releasing it in November 2020. Now, Jason also had a few other pieces of information that were pulled from the article, where he says 343's tool set, which was so difficult to use that they spent months considering a switch to Unreal, which they did not do that in the end. And then the game was delayed multiple times. One early plan was to release multiplayer in 2019, a campaign in 2020. Interesting. There were actually rumors, I believe, that were going around like earlier this year that they had considered that or even were considering it. So there you go. It does look like, yeah, they had thought of, okay, multiplayer out first, then campaign later. Maybe the multiplayer will be shown as a beta, which they did that. They released the multiplayer ahead of the campaign. Anyway, like I said, this was all over the place for development, but it appears that the one moment where they started to get things really on track is indeed when Joseph Staten came in. And the reason it was delayed is because he presented such a good case for it being delayed, which, could you imagine what Halo Infinite would have been if it came out in 2020 next to that Xbox Series X? If we're talking about cut content and playlists missing and the progression not being great, right now, a year later, it probably wouldn't have been good. I still have to, go through the campaign and everything and then give my thoughts on that. But based on the multiplayer now, it would have been even more bare bones than that. Having the cut content is rough. But we know that Halo Infinite is an ongoing service-like game, an experience that will continue to evolve as we go further. And that was one of the biggest things that Joseph Staten put up there with the case is, look, if you release Halo in a very buggy state, people might just become sour of the entire franchise, which of course is something that Microsoft wants to keep valuable. The Halo franchise has been there with Microsoft since the beginning of the Xbox back in 2001. So you don't want to just push it out there and potentially get a Cyberpunk on your hands, right? And hey, fortunately for Microsoft, they decided to delay it. But overall, it's a very well done report, certainly worth the read, and it just shows how hard it is to get these big AAA style games out the door in time or at all. And it's not just Halo. We've seen a lot of games that have really pulled back the curtain on their development and how hard it was to get them done. Remember Raising Kratos? That was a whole thing there as well. But here's hoping that some of that cut content that was pulled from Halo Infinite for the release now finds its way back into the game, and I eventually get that physical copy that has everything on the disc and is completely playable, the complete edition. But we'll see. Halo Infinite's supposed to be evolving over the next 10 years, and we'll see where it ends up then. Next up, let's talk about some new sales data for Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It got off to a fast start in Japan, selling easily over 1 million copies in its first couple of days on the market. But it looks like we have an official announcement from the Pokemon Company. We can see this over on Twitter. This tweeted out by Sarah B saying, it has been announced that Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl sold 6 million units globally in its first week of sale. If we take a look, Joe Merrick did actually go back and compare it to some of the previous releases, saying Sword and Shield did around the same, so around 6 million in the first week. Let's Go did around half of that. Sun and Moon did 7.2 million in the first 2 weeks. X and Y did 4 million in 2 days, and the Oris did 3 million. That's pretty good, actually, for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl being really just behind Sun and Moon, which was a brand new title in the Pokemon series there. These are remakes of Diamond and Pearl. So for remakes, that's very, very good. There was a lot of backlash for Pokemon Diamond or Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and all of that. And we've kind of joked about the idea of if there's a boycott, like the National Dex stuff, or if there's like the change.org petitions for the game, specifically Pokemon anyway, seems to just help it in terms of just the game just sells more then. And I think a lot of it just has to do with what I've said before. We mostly make up a small percentage of the overall mainstream that will gravitate towards something like a Pokemon game, which is good and bad for the series because it shows that they don't have to necessarily change everything up, the entire formula, to make a lot of money. But that also comes back to the idea that Pokemon is such a massive franchise and makes billions and billions of dollars that, well, they're going to make that money either way. But it does make me hopeful for the idea of having this Legends Arceus game alongside of the mainline series that we've become accustomed to, because it could be cool to see Game Freak try something new. So I'm hoping that Arceus comes out and it's good so we can see them continue to evolve that series alongside of the mainline series. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a new rumor that's been floating around for a game series that I hope is able to make a triumphant return. But I gotta say, I'm getting less and less confident in the company's ability to create a game like this. We can see this over on Twitter. This is from Tom Henderson. Says, Ubisoft's Splinter Cell game that is in early development is currently scoped as a, you guessed it, open world of sorts, a more stealthy version of Assassin's Creed, similar to how Halo Infinite has done its open world. Again, I have to play through Halo Infinite here to see what they're getting at exactly. I assume less of a massive open world style game, maybe like a Far Cry, maybe one that's a bit more controlled as has been described for Halo Infinite. My concern though is that Ubisoft does what Ubisoft does, which is they come in and they have their Ubisoft formula where they have a massive map, points all over the place, and it feels like more busy work than anything else, right? So you always have that carrot on a string that you're constantly chasing after, and it feels like you're doing the same thing over and over again. Splinter Cell, I think, would work better as more of a linear style game, one that's more narrative driven, and of course you have all the stealth elements, the cool gadgets, and everything there. Even as a reboot with Sam Fisher, it would work really well in that capacity. Maybe Ubisoft wants to try something where it is like kind of the middle ground. It's not a massive open world, but it's linear and you have areas that you can kind of explore. Something like maybe Last of Us Part 2, where you had certain points where it was at least somewhat open, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking in that regard, but it seems like it's me a while before we see anything with Splinter Cell, unless they want to make a very preemptive announcement, maybe at a Ubisoft 4, just to get things moving and get the fans hyped. So here's hoping Ubisoft doesn't Ubisoft Splinter Cell. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you buying God of War on PC? 10% said yes, I already played it on PlayStation. 11% said yes, this will be my first time playing it. And then 79% said no, I'm not interested in buying it on PC. I did see some comments that's like, well, I can't even get like a good video card right now, so I'm at the pass currently. But I am curious about God of War on the PC, how it would look, because it already looked fantastic on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Then you get a really nice setup behind it, and you're using things like DLSS support with NVIDIA. Could look very, very impressive. So I think it's worth checking out here, but I understand why some people may say, well, I already beat it on the PlayStation, or I don't have necessarily the rig to power something like that. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Croc saying, there's a flaw with PS5's timed exclusive strategy. If I can't find an affordable PS5 before then, it doesn't matter. You're right somewhat in the sense that if Chrono Cross comes out, we'll say as a PS5 timed exclusive, and it comes out in like January or February, yeah, that's probably unnecessary. But if this is something that's still like a year off, maybe it doesn't come out till like August, September, October in 2022, in Sony's mind, if they have a year exclusivity on that, they have it for that holiday and then almost into the next holiday when they're trying to get the PS5 stock situation figured out. So if they can have that game still running exclusive next to the PS5 as they continue to stock more and more systems and they get that worked out, to them, it would be worth it. But yeah, if it's coming out like pretty soon, probably not a great idea to have that timed exclusivity on that title. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the Game Awards tonight. Are you excited? And what's the big reveal do you think that will be there? And then also, what about Splinter Cell? Do you think Ubisoft can actually pull this thing off, like current day Ubisoft? And then Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl touching 6 million units. Are you surprised? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.